Hello.
Hi, Harry. Yeah, so
Yeah, I just had hip replacement surgery 2 months ago,
oh wow, okay.
and we were just checking. There's a place up by Santa Fe, north of here, called 10,000 Waves, where they have these wonderful hot tubs, and it's just flowing water, and you can get this little room that has a hot tub and a sauna and a cooling area and all that. And I just had to make sure my wife and I were talking about going up there because it's really nice, and I have lots of arthritis. You have aches and pains as we age, but it's really nice to go up there. But I wanted to make sure I was okay to go. I'm 2 months out from the hip surgery, so that's what they were calling back, and they said okay.
Great. So you've been given the all clear to go. Great.
Yeah.
I should mention I'm recording from my notes.
Okay.
So I'll just start by asking, how did you meet Hank and Jay?
We grew up together, basically. I met them, actually. Hank was a year behind me. I always known him as Hank. Formerly he's Henry, but I've never been able to switch over to Henry. But Hank and he was a year younger than me, and I remember him from the schoolyard in elementary school. He was kind of a smart mouth kid. And, we just I knew who he was, and it wasn't until in high school that we were in the church youth group together. And we went on a church youth group retreat up to outside Lake Geneva, and we got to know each other and became friends then.
Right.
And Jay is, 4 years younger, I believe, or 3 or 4 years younger than Hank, so he's like 4 years younger than me. And so I didn't meet, I met Jay because I would go over to the Cupjack home, and he was just the younger brother that we ignored.
Right.
At the time, 3 or 4 years apart.
Yeah.
In high school. But and I went in the Navy right out of high school, and when I came back, I would go over to the Cupjack household because I knew the parents, I knew the family well because Hank and I had been friends, since at that time, for 8 years or so. And I got to know Jay, and Jay and I started hanging out together, doing things because he was, when he was home from college,
right.
That would have been about the time when he was going to college. He'd come home for the summers and stuff, or then he started going to school closer to home, and I got to see him more and more because Hank was occupied with building his recording studio then, and didn't see him very much. But then, since I just gravitated towards the Cupjack home, as I knew that the parents real well and all that. Then we would see each other at churches. We all went to the same church and stuff, and I started working with the youth group when I came home from the Navy. And there was a college group, and Jay was in that, and I was going into that. So, but anyway, we got to know each other in the after 72.
After 72. And what age would you have been then at that point?
I was 22 when I came out of the service, and so he would have been 18.
He was 18. Okay.
Yeah. So that was when then he was acceptable age at that point. So,
yeah. Right.
And so, and I would see him a lot as the years went by. I would see Hank, I see Jay, and then Hank and I did some projects together, and Jay would come down, like we renovated a double storefront for Hank to become his home studio, and Jay worked alongside of us in a lot of different projects in renovating this because we were all carpenters and did everything, electrical and plumbing and steam work. We just tried to do everything we could, and Jay was working down there. And so we had a working relationship, and then, we just remained friends. We would hang out in different things together. Then later on, Hank started having big parties, and Jay would be down there for parties and things like that.
Oh, down
so
at the
we'd
studio.
see each other down at the studio on Sheffield. And so we'd see each other all the time, and he would come over to my place and visit, and we would, go to movies or do, whatever. We, just hang out, what you do as you go through your 20s and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. What were your impressions? What were your first impressions as you got to know Jay as a person? What kind of struck you about him standing out?
Well, he had, like his father and his brother, he had skills which we were all developing at that time, skills in woodworking, carpentry, and all those types of skills, and that stuck out. Also, I found him a good sense of humor. We had kindred likes in music and just general entertainment and what we liked entertainment. I don't know, nothing that stood out, just that he was my friend's brother, and we just, we became, friends as a result. It was just natural. And Jay got to know, like, my whole family. He would be welcome at my house, at my parents' house, and like I was welcome at their houses. So we became, I felt like, we all became more than just friends. We were, more like brothers and that type of thing. Because, we looked out for each other, and if someone needed a hand, the other person would be available to help out, things like that,
Can you make, are there any instances sticking in mind where, like, Hank and Jay kind of helped you out when you needed their help?
Well, they were, when I was working for Cupjacks when my father passed away suddenly when I was 32. I was 33. And, they were there to help me through that process and to help, anything that my family needed, that they were all, right there. And likewise, when in the mid-70s, when Mrs. Cupjack, their mother, passed away, I was there for them. We were, we became part of each other's family.
Yeah. So you started to see them as brothers.
Right. Yeah. And like your brother, your brother is there for you.
Yeah.
That's, part of the whole thing. So I guess that's the way that's what, we were friends, but then we were more than that.
Yeah.
It was our family. We were part of each other's family.
And you mentioned that you began working with the Cupjacks. What were you doing? Actually, sorry, just to go back a little bit. When did you first become aware that, like, Eugene and Hank and Jay were kind of involved in miniature art? Can you remember that when that?
Well, Jay didn't become, as far as I know, Jay didn't become involved too much later. But in high school, Hank started doing things for his dad. Of course, that was when Hank and I were in high school. Jay was in junior high, so he was still too young to get actively involved.
Right.
And but I would go over to the studio in high school, and I saw the room. So I became aware probably when I was 17, of the miniatures. And then
what did you think of them when you saw them for the first time?
They were interesting, but it was just, it was what your friend's dad did.
Yeah.
And you'd look at it and go, oh, this is cool and all that, but I wasn't involved in it. And in the 70s, after I was out of the service, I would go over to the studio more often because that's where I would be able to find Hank, because Hank started working for his dad.